Hi there, welcome to this video. I'm going to take the Z6 Mark II into the bird hide and do some bird photography. I have been into the bird hide now a few times with the Z6 Mark II, and it's given me the opportunity to get a better feel for the camera and learn how to set it up to get the best out of it. Now I'm still getting used to it yet, I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm going to share my findings with you in this video. Last week I passed 1,000 subscribers, which is really mind-blowing to me. I never imagined to do that when I set up the channel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give my subscribers the opportunity to ask me questions to find out more about me. And I'm also going to pick a question at random and give away one of my prints. So get sending me those questions. If you are new to the channel, then go ahead and click like, subscribe and the bell notifications. That way you'll stay up to date with all of my future content. So that's enough talking. It's time to take my new camera into the bird hide and enjoy my photography. So I've come into the hide, I've set the camera up ready. If you've not seen any of my previous videos about how I set up the hide, go and check those out. They're all on the channel. I'm all ready to go. One of the first things that you need to do, and you forget about it until you have a new camera, is on the side of the viewfinder there's something called the diopter, and it's worth setting that up properly. It basically focuses the viewfinder to match your own vision. It's no use thinking the shots are out of focus when it's just the fact that that doesn't match your eyes. And it's particularly important for me because I wear varifocal glasses, and so when I look through the viewfinder I have to fine-tune it to match my own eyesight. So make sure you do that. One of the very early things that I did once I started practicing with the camera is I set up what is called the eye menu. Now you can put your own items in that menu, so it's really quick and accessible, and I've found this really useful. I've run out of space in the eye menu, so what I've done is I've set up everything else that I want into what's called the My menu, and I've also assigned a function button on the front to allow me to access that My menu without taking my eye away from the viewfinder, which I find really useful. I've also assigned the other function button on the front to be the playback button. I find that just useful, so if you've got the camera in your hand, you can access all of those controls with the right hand without having to use the play button or the playback button that's actually on the back of the camera. So that's useful, and I'll show you how I've set up the eye menu. The beauty of the eye menu is you can set it up however you want, depending on how you take photographs. Now this is just how I've set mine up, and you're free to set yours up in your own particular way. So firstly over here I've got the exposure delay. Now this works in a similar way to how I used to use a self-timer to allow you to press the shutter, take your hands off the camera, allow it to settle before the shutter fires. That's really useful, and you've got different times that you can set that for as well, so that's really useful. Then we've got the quality of the image that you take, whether it's RAW, JPEG or a mixture of the two. There's a flash mode there. Then we've got focus stacking, so you can do that within camera should you want to. We've got a shutter release, so we can do a single frame or a burst mode or a self-timer mode there. Then this is very useful. I use this a lot. This is the autofocus menu. So at the moment it's set for animals, but you can set it for face recognition or a single point. There's lots of different autofocus modes in there. Then if we go onto the bottom line, this is the autofocus again, so this can be continuous, or it can be a single, or it can be a manual focus. So that's another really useful thing to have handy. And then we go across, there's a vibration reduction. You choose a card. I've only got one card in at the moment. Then you've got the metering mode, you've got focus peaking, and you've got the white balance in that corner. Now also I've if I bring this up, this is my menu. I've put a few extra things in here that I use very regular. I'll talk about the silent photo in a minute, but that's in there, turning that on and off. There's bracketing, there's a powered off delay. That's another useful thing that I'll talk about in a second. Multiple exposures. That's a useful thing to have handy. A time-lapse movie, focus shift shooting, and a HDR mode. So I've put all of those into a very quick, accessible menu that's available from, and I've assigned that to a function button on the front. I can also, from the function button on the front, as I said earlier, just go into playback mode. So here's a bit of video that I filmed of this collared dove. I'll show you one of the nice features that I found about the autofocus system. If you see this log that I have in front of me, what you can do is press the OK button and you get this little square that pops up, and you can use that to select a focus point, but what you can then do is recompose and the focus point stays on the point where you locked it to, which is really very handy for recomposing, because then even if the subject actually moves, if it was a bird or it was an animal, that focus point will track the animal or just a stationary object, which is really quite handy for recomposing. Previously, when taking pictures of birds, what I used to do is use a single point to allow me to put that point on the bird's eye to make sure the eye was in focus. But what I've been experimenting with the Z6ii is to use the autofocus in animal mode to try and track the bird. Now, it's done a really good job. It's not managed to lock onto the bird's eye as it did with the cat when I did that earlier inside, but it does do a really good job of locking onto the bird, and I've got some really good results using just the autofocus tracking in animal mode. One of the features I'm really loving about this new camera is the silent mode. Now, the shutter activation is pretty quiet anyway because there's no mirror jumping up and down, but with silent mode activated, it does exactly what it says. It becomes silent, which is great for taking pictures of birds because it doesn't disturb them at all. It took a little bit of getting used to. About the only indication that the shutter is actually fired is that the viewfinder goes very, very momentarily black and then comes back on. So that's great. Really like that a lot. One thing that I have noticed that's really worth bearing in mind is that the Z6ii comes with a new battery, which is the EN-EL15C, which has more capacity. Now that's good because obviously the camera uses a lot more power with using a viewfinder and a screen to see with, but it will not use my old third-party batteries that I use for my D850. I have got some other Nikon batteries that seem to work okay, but the third-party ones don't work in this, whether they're just too old and are not to the right spec, or whether it's because they're third-party. Either way, they don't work in the Z6ii. One of the first accessories that I bought for the new camera was an L bracket. Now, I bought a universal one that was quite cheap, thankfully, but it had two big problems. First being that the hole that the screw goes through was in the center of this plate, and it was quite a wide base, but on the bottom of the Z6ii, the hole is quite close to the front of the body, and so that meant that the plate hung over the front of the camera body, and this gave a real big problem when you came to put the FTZ adapter on. It just wouldn't click in because of the plate hanging over the front, and I like to keep the plate on all the time. I'm sure most people do, rather than keep taking it off every time, and so that's made it really impractical. But second, it was cheap and didn't click into the Arca Swiss head plates on the top of the tripod, and I've tried 2 different plates and it just wouldn't go on, so that was £10 wasted. So there's a bit of a word of warning. I have actually bought a more dedicated one that goes with the Z6ii, and this has been fine. To begin with, I was getting really frustrated with the EVF turning off and going into standby mode. I was looking at the birds out there, and every time that I came to take a picture, the camera had turned off, it powered down, and then you've got to power it back up, and it takes a couple of seconds to come out of standby mode, and by then the bird had gone and I'd missed the shot. But what I did find in one of the menus is that you can put a delay of the camera going into standby mode, and you can specify the time before it goes into standby, and so I've set that to about 5 minutes now, so as soon as I put my eye to the viewfinder, it's instantly back on, and I can take the shot, and I've missed far less, so that was really worth finding. One of the things I'm finding as a real advantage about this mirrorless camera is that I'm getting sharper shots, or they definitely appear sharper, because the mirror is now not moving and there's no vibration introduced. I feel that the shots that I'm getting, even with the same lens that I used on my D850, I find that the shots seem to be sharper and I'm getting much better results, so I'm liking that as well. Here are a few of my favourite shots that I've taken with the Z6ii to finish the video. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I am really enjoying my new camera. I hope that comes across. I'm not sponsored by Nikon or anything like that, but I am finding the shots that I get out of it really strong, and I'm liking the way that it handles. It will probably end up replacing my D850 completely before very long. The next thing I'm going to do is take the Z6 Mark II out and do some landscape shooting, so watch out for that video next week. Don't forget you can check out my Instagram, that's @Oakden Photography. There you can see sneak peeks of photos before they go into videos. You can also message me there and down below in the comments. Also, send me those questions for the 1000 subscriber special. If you've enjoyed this video, then go ahead and click like, subscribe and the bell notifications. Watch out for next week's video. That goes live at 4 o'clock on Sunday, but all that's left now is to say stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Been into the hide now a few times with my new mirror, and this meant that the clamp held. Viewfinder goes momentarily black. Remember those questions for the 1000 focus test. Now I've got it in the right mode. How's this doing?